I'm very happy to sit with you here today and to have this very unique opportunity to speak to you about many things that are very interesting, I'm sure not just for me, but for many other people who follow your teaching or are interested in spiritual enlightenment. And I've been your student and I've listened to your teachings for over 20 years already. And
That's quite a lot.
Yes, it's a long time of meditating together, and even though through the years I have managed to get a lot of insight and deep realizations myself into the nature of reality, there are many things that I'm sure that could be clarified and looked at and understood way deeper than I can do by myself. So I think my very first question today to you is, what does it mean for you? How is it experienced within your being when we talk about the enlightened state, when we talk about the liberated state of having no self or having no inner center? How is it experienced within you? What is your direct experience of that state, if you could describe it? Because usually I usually don't find any text or people who are talking about it in such an intimate level.
Oh, I'm sure there are many texts that deal with the interior experience. If there is such a thing, because you are asking what does it feel like, or how is this experienced? Right?
First of all, yeah, the inner experience of that, the quality of consciousness, the perception of everything through this having no state.
Usually, there is a certain constant experience for everyone that there is some sort of experiencer. You see, some kind of a psychological center experiencing all the experiences, and that these experiences refer and point at this experiencer. This is the center. The center accumulates these experiences. This center gathers the experiences and remembers these experiences, and these experiences reflect on the nature or even enhance and expand the nature of this experiencer, right? Because it already starts with your very question, because you ask, how is this experienced? What is the inner experience? You see, because the answer is none. That's what needs to be understood, because there has to be an accumulated experience that one can talk about only when there is an experiencer, right?
Yes.
They come together. That's obvious. Now, and this is the thing, and we need. I would say that I would suggest that we would start with this point, because we tend to have this kind of sense of experiencer.
Yes.
Right. But perhaps we never take the trouble. We never really bother to look back into this center and to truly search for it. You see, we take it for granted, this I have experiences, I have a past, I have a future, I will be this and I will be that, I am this and I am that. But I don't think we really take the time and the energy to sincerely look back or look inside to search for it. Where is it? You see? I think that when we really take the time and energy and we look with sincerity, we find that there is absolutely nothing there. That's the thing, that there is no such thing.
I mean, there is an experience, right? I mean, this is an experience. Right now we are speaking, or at least I think so.
No, of course there is something, there is an experience in this sense, but you were asking about what is the experience of the enlightened state. That was different.
Yes.
Of course there are plenty of experiences.
No, so you're saying
life is a chain of experiences.
So you're saying that the enlightened experience is having no sense of accumulation of experience. So there is no organizing entity that weaves around this experience.
The experiences don't build up. They don't build or consolidate a certain psychological center, you see, a certain me. Because this is the thing, the nature of the mind, when it is really looked into with sincerity, with passion, with a penetrating look, the nature of the mind is transparency.
Can you talk a little more about this transparency?
Transparency in the sense that it is really space-like. That's the mind. The mind is space. I always like to give this metaphor of when we are gazing at the night sky. And everyone is conditioned to notice the stars. We notice these tiny shimmering lights, right? And we disregard the space in which they appear. Now the space is much greater than these tiny shimmering lights, and still when we look at the night sky, when we take the trouble to look at the night sky, we say look at the stars. We never say look at this infinite space, or we hardly say look at the infinite space. Look at this all-containing space, which has no attributes, because space is that which contains, but it doesn't have its own nature, you see. So now when you look into the sky of the mind, suddenly you realize, and I think this is a very accessible realization. It's not so unimaginable or mystical. It's really accessible. We are so concerned with the little stars within the mind, which are our thoughts, memories, the content of consciousness, that we don't really notice the nature of the awareness that is gazing, that is taking a look at everything. So when we do take the trouble, what we discover is a complete transparency, complete emptiness. We discover that the mind by its very nature is already silent. There is no movement in it, really. Nothing can change its true nature. In Tantric Buddhism, this is called the clear light mind. It's the innermost, or the subtlest, or the deepest layer of the mind, or the nature of the mind.
So, from what you say, would it be true to say that the sense of experiencer, or a sense of a self, or as they like to call it, a separated self, is just a habit of thought? It's just a habit of the mind?
It's a superstition. There is some sort of we come to this world. I came to this world also very innocently with the mind as a sort of a clean slate, and then somebody pointed at this body and said, "This is Shai. This is your body." and we are your parents, and so on. Then division began, you see. Then the mind, which was naked awareness, took on or adopted the name and began to, in the sense of a me to which everything refers, and began to arrange around it a cluster of thoughts, which is the memories and experiences and wishes and expectations and so on and so on. So much so that eventually this cluster seems really real, you see, undeniable. But we don't question the core around which everything is intertwined. When we do question, we realize that it's nothing but a set of identifications. Remove identifications, you'll find nothing there, because the I is the sum total of its identifications, the activity of identity. Therefore, when we ask what is the experience of the enlightened state, we understand that there can be no such thing. You see? Because experience is that which is limited in time. It comes and goes. It is experiencing something, and it is all about gathering, because in experience you also always compare it to something else, right? You know that you have a powerful, wonderful experience if you have had before terrible or disappointing experiences, right? You know what is pleasurable and what is really pleasurable and what is not pleasurable at all. So you have experiences is in time, and it's a part. It's always a part of some greater measure, some greater comparison, which is the chain of experiences. So when we look, sometimes people talk about the enlightened state, and they think about grand experiences or mystical experiences. These experiences can come and go, but again, they are also just experiences. But if we ask what is the so-called experience of the enlightened mind or the awakened mind, mm-hmm. then the answer is at first transparency, and then the second answer is a transparency that is everywhere and in everything, because when you are starting to realize the nature of your so-called mind, then you realize that this so-called mind doesn't have edge or boundaries, because if something is transparent, why would it have edge, you see? Why would it have a limit? Then this is where you can say true awakening enters. It's this realization that the nature of the mind, the nature of awareness, has no boundaries, no edges. It is of transparent nature. It is everywhere and inseparable from the greater space, you see, what we can call consciousness or universal consciousness. So that is the so-called experience, which is not an experience at all, because it is more the constant ground of experience, of existence, you see. It's just like the night sky. So have you ever come to the night sky asking, what is the experience of being a night sky, you see? And of course you cannot ask this question, because the night sky doesn't exist. You see? When we take a look at it, we think of our perception limits it, you see? We call it a sky. You see, but does it have an edge? It's only because we are looking from a certain angle that it has some kind of margins. But that's just an illusion, because we ourselves are floating in space. Luckily, not floating too much, but you understand.
Yeah, so you said so many interesting things that I would love to, like many optional doors to go through, and maybe I will say first of all that, so you're saying that we never take the time to really look at that apparent self, and then to discover it's not existent, that it's just like you called it, a superstition. And I guess you have done that on your journey of,
yes.
of spiritual seeking. You
yes,
probably
asking this honest question. Yes.
So could you share with us today some of the most important shifts or junctions on that journey, like the important questions, the important understandings? How did it all unfold for you to reach that state of that beautiful transparency?
Yeah, we can try to do that, but let's first delve more deeply into the first question, because it is interesting.
Okay.
I think the most important thing about this state is not the history of some of a certain individual, but there is something, there are much greater implications, right?
Yes.
Because the only difference between me and many other people is that I took the trouble to ask a question sincerely. That was, I think, because it's the same. Everyone will discover the same, and it's completely accessible. It's not special. On the contrary, it's the thing that makes us not special, finally, in a completely redeeming way. We cease being special. So let's approach it from another angle. Then we will return to your question.
Okay.
The other angle is that we have absolutely no idea, and this is again a matter of honesty. If when we stop being so knowledgeable or occupied with our certainties and confidence, and just because we are clinging to circumstances or to the noise of our daily life. But if we stop for a moment and we ask ourselves a very simple existential question: Do I really know what is going on? Do I really know what is going on, in the sense of how come all this has come about? You see, how all this has come into being? What is this? We are living in complete mystery. We are steeped in mystery. And nobody knows. Nobody knows. We are here, you and I, and one day we found ourselves dressed up in bodies, having thoughts, certain identifications, and certain talents and skills. Many of us ridiculously claim these skills and talents as their possessions, you see. I don't even understand how we can do that, because perhaps I am capable of writing books. Do I know why and how I'm capable of producing books? I have no idea, you see. Did Albert Einstein understood or knew how he was capable of developing general relativity and all the other discoveries? He was just capable of doing that. Now, so we're just finding ourselves with none of our skills explained to us, none of, and our very existence unexplained. This means that necessarily we don't possess self-existence. What does it mean, self-existence? Self-existence, it means that life is my own, you see? I possess a life. I possess a unit of life with skills and abilities and so on, with energies and with inclinations and attractions and passions. No, I am just, I'm not more than a flower coming out of the soil, you see? I don't possess my own existence. I come out of existence without, completely helplessly. This is because there is no self-existence, which means that there is no I, you see?
Yes, when you're talking about it like that, I can really perceive that mystery, because I reflect back on these questions that you're posing, like, do I know what I'm doing here? Do I know even how I got here? Do I know what it means to be? I don't know. And yet, when you describe this enlightened state, one of the things that was very striking for me was how it is so intelligent, how it is so beautifully synchronized, and somehow it knows what it's doing without having a someone to know.
What does it mean that it knows what it's doing? What do we mean? That when the mind is in a state of transparency, and it is profoundly aware, and it is the energy is no longer wasted on thinking silly thoughts. It's not wasted on greed, on desire, on attachment, on all the petty things that we humans are deeply occupied with. The mind has realized its own innate emptiness. It is quiet. The energy in it is accumulated. It gathers, and there is a profound intensity. This intensity is not different from any other force of nature, and essentially it is also not different from the energy that the life force that gives rise to, or that animates trees, flowers, clouds, supernovas, you see? And this kind of capacity to operate from the whole as a holistic function, you see, because the mind is then a part of everything. It's a part of a totality. It doesn't draw on its own resources. It draws on the resources of the general life and energy and passion and creativity that moves everything, moves the entire nature. So then obviously the mind is a part of something that is limitless by nature. You see? As long as we are identified, the mind is so deeply contracted and surrounding, idolizing some kind of and idealizing some sense of I at its very center, it becomes very limited, you see, because all the thoughts, all the emotions, all the feelings, they all surround this one imaginary I. But what happens when the mind has broken its boundaries? The mind is a part of a tremendous creativity. It still cannot create trees or make supernovas or grow stars, new stars, but But
it can obviously write many books and develop many philosophies and techniques and methods, like yourself did.
Yes, but these are just the fruits or the leaves appearing on something much greater. You see, because it's the very state is creative.
Can you explain more about that?
Usually, we feel quite that our life energy or life force is very minimal. You see, this is because we try to draw on our own resources, our own physical resources, our own passions, our own wishes and ambitions. But then many people think, okay, if I drop all that, if all that is gone, then the mind will be dead. You see, numb. What? There's nothing then, because the whole drama, the whole life is all that. We don't understand that life is only extremely minimally realized in this form of life. You see, we don't even know the sense of aliveness. Aliveness is also creativity, because the great life is constantly creative. It creates amazing nature. It creates stars. It creates endless human lives, countless types of beetles, for instance. It's a cosmic factory of creativity.
And yet for us humans, it's usually the case when we create things, from children to other things, that we usually identify them as our own. We appropriate things, and I'm not sure we can even appreciate our creative capacity in the way that you describe it.
I think that we suffocate this, even our bursts of creativity, because there are moments when we touch this sense of the French poet Rimbaud. He described his passion as the wish to create a new flower. You see, I think that's intuitively very beautiful, because we humans, through the creativity of our mind, we try to imitate the creativity of nature, the creativity of the cosmos. In a way, we almost envy it, because when we take a look at one cloud, it's already beyond. It doesn't matter how much humanity creates. It doesn't have the same fragrance. It still somehow feels like plastic flowers. You see? Yes. Like artificial flower. And then, so we have bursts of creativity, and sometimes when we do have them, we are so touched, because we feel connected. You see, we feel like we have become a continuation of the activity of creativity, cosmic creativity. Suddenly we are producing new flowers. Suddenly we are a part of this activity, and this is why it feels so ecstatic. Ecstatic in the Greek sense, in the ancient Greek sense of self-forgetfulness. You see, self-forgetfulness. You forget yourself. You lose yourself in the act of creativity, and you become the flow of creativity. That's ecstasy, or one form of ecstasy. But then we suffocate it. Then the I creeps in.
Yes.
It gets hold of this activity. Says my creation. Yes. Then the name of the artist becomes more important than the art. You know, in ancient India, and not only ancient India, even 1,000 years ago, they used to create books, masterpieces, and nobody took the trouble to request a credit. You see, it was so obvious that it was a part of a universal project that nobody even cared about being me as the possessor of the creation. And I think we can learn from God, if we can call it in this conditioned name, or this absolute reality or source of life, which is forever unknowable. I think we definitely can learn from it, not he, not she, from it, what it is to be responsible for a tremendous creation without taking the credit for it. Right? Because God is completely unknowable. Nobody knows where it is. Sometimes we even suspect that it doesn't exist. And God's creation is so immense that it even allows the freedom to doubt the existence of the source of creation. You see? Non-self-existent beings appear, having the ability to deny their non-self-existence and to imagine that they have a life of their own. Isn't that fantastic?
It is. It's fantastic. And so as I listen to you, because I feel that you're still answering my first question.
Yes.
Like you're still unfolding the...
I don't think it's a problem if we get stuck in the first question.
No, of course not. It's beautiful. So one of the things that I feel very much now is that sense of no limitation, the sense of limitlessness that allows this unfolding of the mind, where it starts to probe at its own quality and starts to realize that it's much vaster than it thought, or that it was used to feel itself, because like you said, it's always contracted around this I. And so one of the things that I feel right now sitting with you is this unfolding of no limitation, and which makes me wonder, like, what is making this talk? What is enabling this talk? Where does it come from? Where is even the impulse comes from? Usually we tend to think it's our own. It's
yes,
our own
of course.
Impulse.
Everything is our own. It's my wife, my husband, my life, my breath, my body. Everything is our own. Yes, we just don't take the trouble to ask whose body. Yes.
So your days are saturated in this beautiful state of openness, of flow, of transparency. Is that partly the reason why you're able to be so creative in your life, as an author, as a teacher? Is that like a requirement for such creativity, this quality of the mind?
Oh, I don't know. The fact that I don't think we have control over our creativity, in the sense of that if we realize the emptiness or the clear light nature of the mind, that we would necessarily become astonishingly or ceaselessly creative. And it's not about that. Mm-hmm. It's not about that. It's because there are many extremely creative people who still think that all this creativity is a part of their self, that the self creates. And indeed, the self has its own limited creativity, because we know very well that very often creativity is limited to self-expression, right? You know, I love music and listen to it very often, of many different types. But what makes it really tiresome or difficult for me to really merge with the music is the silly, petty words that everyone writes because it's all about self-expression, and it's all about abandonment or tears or feeling lonely or feeling desire, being eaten up by our own desires and envy and greed and so on and so on. This is so limited, you see. It's like it's then sometimes it seems like people are capable of creating such extraordinary things, but then the eye always limits it somehow, and then it's not really a continuation of nature. It's suffocated by as a result of this identity. So, but if you're asking about this specific case, what the experience of creativity is,
Yes.
then I would say that it is as if the mind is rests in the just in the place where thought forms come into being. If you think of all our ideas, you see, we sometimes people have ideas, and nobody knows where. Even Freud talked about it and wrote about it. This experience of the unconscious. He was amazingly creative and insightful, and he also pondered about this. Where does it come from? And he described it as a sort of a storehouse, an unconscious that does have some positive nature. So there is this place from which thoughts come. You see, thoughts are born. There are places in the galaxy where stars are born, for instance. We know that. Even we've just discovered now a place where moons are born, which is so beautiful. Celebrating a birthday for a moon. So there is this place where from which thoughts come into being, ideas. And when you are completely silent and without your own volition and your own direction, without your own creativity, and still you haven't renounced the creative impulse, you see? Because how could you renounce the creative impulse? You are a part of the most creative thing imaginable, you see? Sometimes yogis, they rest in this silent, all-inclusive mind, you see, this universal mind, and then their interpretation is that they now rest in the unchanging, that which has absolutely no relation to creation. But I'm saying, how could this be? This universal mind constantly gives rise to an unbelievably creative universe, perhaps more than one. So if it is so creative, how come we are just resting in this state, you see? It can't be that meditation is not the source of the most tremendous creativity. So when you enter deep meditation, I think you enter not only silence, but also you tap into the source from you that exists prior to thoughts, prior to ideas, prior to the subtlest thought forms. And therefore, this is also the spring of creativity. For me, the yogic state is not merging with the unchanging, you see. It's merging with life, starting all the way from the source of life to to the world of phenomena, and also that which links the two. You see, links the source and creation, and the art and the artist, so to speak. And they are a continuation of one another. It's not that there is an artist and the artist doesn't care about the art, or that the artist once wrote a book and then threw it away and now is in some kind of eternal samadhi, internal rest, you see. No. Therefore, when you meditation, it means merging with life. Life in with capital L. Life that is not just the activity of birth and death. You see?
So
Life is a tremendous thing.
is there a difference in the way you describe it? Is there a difference between what you call life with a capital L and God?
Depends what you call God. You see?
No. You mentioned
What
that first.
what do we call God?
That's what I'm asking.
Because I think by now we have already matured to realize that God is not an entity sitting on some some majestic throne or majestic chair, commanding angels and so on. I hope that we are not satisfied with this kind of story, because even if there are certain beings or certain, I don't know, tremendous beings that are invisible, they are not God, you see. So now, what is God? It must be the totality of the source of life, the unknowable mystery which we will never fathom with our mind. Our mind can never reach that. Can never reach that. No mystic has ever reached this, you see.
Why? Why can't we?
Because it's not possible for many different reasons. Just one of them is that if God is truly one without a second, how can one be known without a second, you see? You need to have comparison. You need to have something else. Because only through something else can you say, well, God is not this, God is that. You see? But what if God is everything at the same time?
Yes.
Can you know it? Now, second, it's because God is the knower or all-knower and not the known. You see? Everything you may say about God will become a known, which makes it not God, because God is behind all apparent phenomena, all perceived phenomena. Therefore, we're pretty lost. Third, no matter this mind is inseparable from the universal mind. Still, it's extremely limited. You see, it is. We know extremely little. Actually, we don't know much more than we know. Human beings have been so afraid of not knowing, you see. Yes. So that they surround their life and their mind with so many details that they no longer leave room for this puzzlement, for this wonderment. And because, that's understandable psychologically. Yeah. But existentially, it's not satisfying at all, because we live on a tiny island drifting on an endless ocean, you see. See, all the time looking at that, at the borders of this island and that tiny piece of land. You see? So there has to be some deep surrender to this ocean of not knowing. And then you realize how liberating it is.